It begins in silence, a kind of silence that hums if you listen long enough. Beneath your feet, under the soft whisper of grass, under the roots that twist like buried thoughts, there is a world that never sleeps. Close your eyes for a moment. You can almost feel it. The pulse of something alive, moving, unseen. We call it soil, but that word soil feels too small for what it really is. It's not just dirt, it's not waste or mud or the background of our steps. It is a living universe, a cathedral of decay and rebirth, hidden just below the surface of our waking lives. Every handful of soil contains more living beings than there are people on earth. Tiny architects, engineers, alchemists, each working quietly, invisibly, to hold our world together. And yet, we rarely notice them. When we walk across a meadow, our feet press down on civilizations, vast and ancient, made of roots and microbes, and threads of fungi, so thin they can pass through a needle's eye. When it rains, the water doesn't just fall onto the ground, it falls into it, waking those invisible worlds from their dusty sleep. So tonight, we'll go there, beneath the grass, beneath the noise of our cities and the chatter of our days. We'll enter the slow, secret life of the earth itself. Because the story of soil is not separate from us, it's the story of home. Every breath we take, every leaf that feeds us, every forest that exhales life into the air begins here, in the dark, where death turns back into life. Imagine shrinking smaller than a grain of sand, smaller still, until light feels thick and the space between the particles feels wide enough to swim through. Now, look around. You're standing in a labyrinth. Walls made of minerals, corridors lined with crystals of quartz and iron. The air is damp and warm. It smells of rain and roots and something ancient, the memory of time itself. This is where life began. Long before the first trees stretched their arms toward the sun, before the first fish dreamed of land, soil was already here, forming the patient conversation between rock and sky. It took millions of years for a mountain to crumble into dust fine enough to cradle a seed. Wind, rain, and frost were the first sculptors of life, grinding stone into powder, mixing it with the breath of dying organisms, turning the dead into the fertile. And from that quiet transformation, something miraculous emerged, a skin for the planet, thin as the peel of an apple, but vast enough to feed every forest, every river, every civilization that would ever exist. Soil became the earth's memory. Every fallen leaf, every creature that lived and died, every season that came and went, pressed into its layers like a book of time. If you could read it, you'd see history written not in words but in boots and fossils and the slow chemistry of decay. You'd see the rise and fall of forests, the migrations of animals, the ash of ancient fires. Everywhere you walk, beneath fields, deserts, cities, the ground remembers. We think of the sky as vast and mysterious, but the ground beneath us is no less infinite. It holds galaxies of its own, galaxies made of carbon and nitrogen, and life that breathes without lungs, that feeds without mouths, that dies only to begin again. The soil beneath us is the planet's quietest miracle, and it is alive in ways we're only beginning to understand. Listen closely, you can almost hear it, the faint, endless symphony of life creating itself. Chapter 2, Beneath the Grass. It starts with a single blade, a slender green tower swaying in the wind. Its roots slip down like soft lightning, threading into the dark. Follow them. The deeper you go, the more the world changes. The air grows thick, heavy with moisture, and the scent of something ancient, not rot, but transformation. The kind of smell that says life was here once and will be again. Here, light fades. The hum of insects above becomes a distant murmur. You're crossing a threshold, leaving the world of sky and motion and entering the realm of patience. Because down here, everything moves slowly, but nothing is ever still. Each grain of soil, small enough to cling beneath your fingernails, is its own planet. On its surface live millions of tiny beings, bacteria, fungi, protozoa, each one performing a role in a drama older than the stars. To them, a single raindrop is an ocean. A root hair is a mountain range, and the shadow of a worm passing overhead, a passing storm. If you could listen closely enough, the ground would sound alive. The stretching of roots would echo like the groan of ancient wood. The threads of fungi would rustle as they reach and connect, and the movements of unseen creatures, so small they live between particles, would whisper like wind over sand dunes. Down here, cooperation is survival. Plants send out roots not just for water or anchorage, but to form alliances. At their tips, they exude sugar, a trade currency in the underworld. The fungi sense it, drifting toward the sweetness, extending thin filaments like delicate fingers. When they touch, a handshake occurs, silent, invisible, sacred. This is the beginning of the mycorrhizal network, the hidden web that ties forests together. Fungi become the soil's nervous system, threading through the dark, linking roots across distances far greater than sight can travel. They deliver minerals and water in exchange for sugar, and more than that, they share information. If one tree feels drought, another may respond. If one is attacked by pests, nearby plants begin to prepare defenses. Messages sent not through sound or air, but through threads of living chemistry beneath our feet. It's easy to forget, standing above ground, that the real forest exists below. Every blade, every flower, every towering oak, all are simply the visible hearth of an invisible architecture. Soil is not a graveyard of dead things. It's a cradle of communication. Think of a meadow after rain. The earth softens, rich and dark. Worms rise to the surface, not for air, but to rearrange their world. They eat, tunnel, mix, engineers of fertility. As they move, they leave behind tiny highways for air and water, creating the porous breath of the land. Every small act matters. A worm's tunnel decides where a seed may sprout. A microbe's meal determines whether a forest thrives. And somewhere in the dark heart of this network, roots and fungi are whispering, trading, warning, learning. Scientists once believed plants were solitary, each growing in competition for sunlight and soil. But now we know there are communities. The soil beneath them is not silent, but singing, a chorus of exchanges, an economy of energy, a web of generosity. So, when you walk through a forest or run your hand through a garden bed, remember this. You are touching an ancient mind, one that's been dreaming in minerals and roots for billions of years. And tonight, that mind is stirring, ready to tell its story. Chapter 3, The Breath of the Earth. Take a deep breath in and out. The air that fills your lungs once flowed through the soil. It sounds impossible, but down here, the earth breathes too, not with lungs or wind, but through the movement of life itself, the rising and falling tides of carbon and oxygen, nitrogen and methane, all pulsing in rhythm beneath our feet. Every breath we take is an echo of the soil's slow exhalation. If you could sit quietly in the dark and speed up time, watch years unfold in seconds, you'd see the ground inhale and exhale like a sleeping giant. When rain falls and warmth returns, microbes awaken, feeding on the leftovers of last season's life. They burn tiny fires of chemistry, oxidation, respiration, releasing carbon dioxide back to the sky. Then, in the stillness of cold, the breath slows again. The earth rests. This is not metaphor, it's science. The soil literally breathes, exchanging gases through its porous body, balancing the atmosphere above. It's the hidden lung of the planet, inhaling what we exhale, exhaling what we need to live. For centuries, we looked to forests as the lungs of Earth, and they are. But even the forests depend on what lies below. Because before a leaf can breathe, a root must feed. Roots take in oxygen from the soil's tiny pockets of air, while microbes release carbon dioxide through decomposition. It's a conversation that never ends, a dialogue of gases between the living and the dead. In every forest, in every field, this quiet exchange sustains the rhythm of existence. Even the smell of soil after rain, that sharp, sweet scent that makes you want to breathe deeper, comes from this process. It's called geosmin, a compound made by bacteria when the earth drinks water after dryness. Our brains recognize it instantly, even if we've never learned this name. It tells us life has returned. You can think of the soil as a great alchemist, turning decay into air, death into fragrance, stillness into movement. In this underworld, nothing is wasted. A fallen leaf becomes food for a fungus. That fungus feeds a bacterium. That bacterium releases carbon dioxide. The carbon becomes the breath of a tree, and that tree becomes the air in your lungs. The cycle is endless, circular, perfect, and yet it's fragile. Even a small change in temperature or moisture can alter the balance. Too dry, and the microbes sleep. Too wet, and they drown. Too much disturbance, and the harmony breaks. That's why undisturbed forests and ancient soils breathe differently than farmlands or cities. Their respiration is slower, steadier, like the heartbeat of an old, wise creature. The earth doesn't just support life, it is life, a living system that breathes, digests, and dreams through the language of chemistry and time. And beneath every forest, every step you take, this ancient lung continues its slow exhalation, unseen but constant. When night falls and the wind grows still, the world above may sleep, but below, the breath continues, soft, steady, infinite. The soil sighs, and in that sigh, the story of life continues. Chapter 4: The Memory of Rain. It begins with a drop, cold, clear, innocent. It falls from the sky and touches the ground, and in that instant, a memory begins. The soil remembers rain, not just as water, but as a story. Where it came from, what it carried, how long it stayed. Every drop leaves an imprint, a soft fingerprint in the earth's endless diary. Watch closely. The raindrop slides down a blade of grass, gathers speed, and vanishes into the soil's dark mouth. To us, it disappears, but to the soil, it has just arrived home. Down here, the drop begins its journey, weaving through tiny pores, slipping between grains of sand and silt and clay. It moves like thought, slow, deliberate, unhurried. Along the way, it meets roots thirsty for its arrival, fungi spreading their filaments to guide it, bacteria waiting to awaken. Each particle of soil is shaped to hold and release that water in perfect balance. Too loose, and the rain runs away. Too tight, and the roots suffocate. But when it's just right, the texture of life appears. This dance of water and soil determines everything. Forests rise or fall by it, deserts expand or retreat. Even the shape of human civilization has always followed it. Rivers and fertile plains forming the birthplaces of our oldest dreams. The soil is not merely a sponge, it's a thinker, a memory bank of moisture. When rain falls, it simply doesn't soak, it listens. The pores of the earth decide how much to keep, how much to share, how much to return to the sky. This way, soil becomes the planet's greatest regulator, the keeper of drought and flood, the silent conductor of the water cycle. When the sun returns, heat rises and evaporation begins. The water that once rested in the soil begins to ascend, pulled upward through roots, turned into vapor by leaves, then drifting into clouds once more. The rain that fell yesterday might become the mist that cools your skin tomorrow. Every droplet is a traveler, moving through the veins of the world, carrying whispers of every place it's been. And the soil is where all those stories intersect. The earth drinks deeply and then patiently releases. But what happens when we interrupt that memory? When we pave over fields, strip the land bare, or plow too deep, the soil forgets. Its pores collapse, its texture changes. The water runs off instead of sinking in, carrying away nutrients, eroding the face of the world grain by grain. The earth's breath shortens, its memory fades. This is how deserts are born, not only from heat but from forgetfulness. Yet, The soil still tries to remember. Given a chance, it relearns. Roots return, worms rebuild channels, microbes reawaken, rain begins to linger again, finding its old paths home. This is the resilience of the ground we walk on, its unspoken devotion to continuity. Chapter 5: The Quiet Builders. If you kneel down and place your hand on the ground, it may seem still, but beneath your palm, a billion lives are unfolding. Unseen, unheard, unending. The soil is not a void, it's a city, and it never sleeps. Every handful of earth holds entire civilizations, vast, complex, and ancient. Here, beneath our feet, architects and engineers labor without rest. They do not have eyes or voices, but they build worlds. Let's begin with the oldest of them all, the fungi. Their bodies are invisible, thin threads called hyphae that weave through the soil like veins of light. Each filament reaches and connects, forming a network so vast it can span entire forests. These networks don't just transport nutrients, they design relationships. Where we see competition, fungi see collaboration. They shuttle phosphorus and nitrogen between plants, turning scarcity into balance. When one tree falters, another sends aid through the fungal web. Sugars traveling silently through the dark. Scientists call it the wood wide web. But the soil knew this long before we gave it a name. If the fungi are the architects, the roots are the builders. Each root tip explores the underground world like a curious mind. It senses texture, chemistry, and gravity. It avoids stones, finds water, and even listens. Yes, listens to the frequencies of its neighbors. Roots speak in signals, electrical pulses, chemical scents, gentle vibrations. They don't have brains, yet they make decisions: when to grow, when to rest, when to share. And through their conversations, they hold ecosystems together. Then come the worms, the tireless engineers. They tunnel through the soil, eating what's old and leaving behind what's new. Their digestion is transformation. They turn decay into gold. Each worm leaves behind rich humus, full of nutrients and air pockets, creating pathways for roots and microbes to breathe. Charles Darwin once said that worms have done more to shape the Earth's surface than all the wars in human history combined. He was right. If mountains are carved by rivers, the ground beneath them is carved by worms. But they're not alone. There are termites that farm fungi, ants that aerate the ground, springtails that leap through the air between soil particles like astronauts in a microgravity world, beetles that bury and recycle the fallen, turning death into nourishment. Each species works not in chaos, but in choreography. And then, in the smallest corners of this world, we find the microbes, the chemists of existence. They are so small that a teaspoon of soil can contain more than the number of humans who have ever lived. And yet, they hold the earth's fate in their invisible hands. These bacteria break down dead matter, recycle nutrients, and fix nitrogen from the air into a form that plants can use. Without them, the green world above would starve. Every leaf, every fruit, every breath of oxygen owes its life to these microscopic laborers. They are the oldest workers of the planet. 3.5 billion years of continuous creation. When we think of the origin of life, we often look to the ocean, but in truth, life never left the soil. It just learned to bloom above it. If you could see all of this in motion, sped up to 1,000,000 times, it would look like a cosmic dance. Fungi weaving threads like constellations, roots expanding like coral reefs, microbes flickering like galaxies, worms tunneling like comets through dark matter. Soil is not just matter, it's movement. And in this movement, the architecture of existence takes shape. Life does not build by plan, but by participation. Each creature adds, removes, transforms, and together they create the living structure we call Earth. Every time a seed sprouts, it's because the soil made room for it. Every time a tree falls, the soil catches it. And every time you walk across a field, you're walking over an empire, one that built the ground you depend on. But the quiet builders ask for little, just time, moisture, peace. Disturb them too often, blow too deep, poison too freely, and their cities collapse. The balance unravels, the breath slows, the memory fades. Yet they never stop trying. Even in barren ground, life begins again. A single fungal thread, a lone bacterium, a seed waiting for its chance. The soil rebuilds itself from silence, over and over, like a patient God. If you listen carefully, not with your ears, but with your awareness, you might feel it. A vibration beneath the soles of your feet. The faint murmur of creation still happening, one grain at a time. This is the secret world we belong to. The builders below and the dreamers above, one feeding the other forever. Chapter 8. The Final Stillness. Night settles over the land. The air cools, the wind softens, and the voices of the day fold into silence. Above, the sky stretches wide, a dark ocean scattered with ancient light. Below, the soil rests, but it is not asleep. Down there, in the quiet we cannot hear, The slow work of life continues. Roots shift gently, adjusting their grasp. Microbes flicker awake and asleep, like tiny lanterns in the dark. Fungal threads stretch one more inch, weaving their silent networks. And somewhere in the hollow of warmth, a worm curls within the earth, the simplest expression of life's persistence. Everything is still, but nothing has stopped. The soil teaches us this more gently than any philosophy ever could. Stillness is not the absence of movement. It is movement slowed to the rhythm of eternity. As you breathe in, the cool air fills your lungs, air that once belonged to a forest, a field, a sea of moss. As you exhale, you give something back: carbon, warmth, a small piece of your existence. This exchange is older than humanity, older than trees, older than time measured by human memory. And the soil receives it quietly, gratefully, as it has always done. The same atoms in your breath tonight may rest in a seed next year or travel through a river. Or become part of a bird's wing as it rises into morning light. You are not simply living on Earth, you are living as Earth, an ever changing whirl of borrowed atoms, passing through you like passing through a moment. This is the secret that soil whispers in the dark. Nothing is ever lost. What falls becomes fuel. What decays becomes foundation. What ends becomes beginning. Life is not a line, but a loop, circular, generous, continuous. And the soil is the keeper of that loop, a soft archive of everything that has ever lived, a memory deeper than oceans, older than mountains, more patient than time. If you lie down on the ground tonight, really lie down, chest to earth, heartbeat to heartbeat, you might feel something subtle beneath you. Not a vibration, not a sound, but a presence. The presence of a world that holds you without asking anything in return. A world that has carried forests and civilizations, storms and summers, extinction and renewal, and still gives itself freely. So often we look to the stars for wonder. We forget that an entire universe exists inches below our feet. A universe that breathes, remembers, builds, heals. A universe that made us, feeds us, receives us at the end of our long walk. You are part of that story, not separate from it, not above it, just one of its chapters, written in water, carbon, and time. And perhaps that is what makes the soil's silence so powerful. It reminds us that we belong, not to cities, not to clocks, not to the noise we build around ourselves, but to this ancient breathing earth, to its rhythms, its patience, its endless, generous cycle. In this final stillness, the soil speaks without words. You came from me. You are held by me. And one day, you will return to me. Not as loss, but as continuation. Let that thought settle softly in your mind. Let it ease the weight of the day, the noise of the world, the sharp edges of being human. Because down here, beneath everything, the earth is always steady, always listening, always transforming what we give it into something new. The night deepens, your breath softens, and the soil, ancient, patient, alive, holds the world together one more day. Tomorrow will begin again. The rain will fall, the roots will grow, the builders will wake, and the quiet miracle beneath your feet will continue its work, grain by grain, breath by breath, life by life. For now, rest. The earth is awake for both of us.